Hello again. Right, on with finishing off the Highland whiskies. So this particular one is a drinks by the Dram sample, which was very, very kindly acquired for me by Chris Cook and his wife Lindsay. So thank you very, very much for this. This is one of the last samples that I got, simply because it was like the last one on the list of my Highlands, and I think he bought it for me, which is very, 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 very kind of them to do. So this is Teaninich. It's not Teaninich. Apparently the pronunciation of the CH on the end is ick, so it's a Teaninich sound. Not obvious, quite a difficult one, and I think it's probably why it's not a massively popular whiskey. For two reasons. One, I think a lot of people can't pronounce it and ergo don't want to ask for it, and the other is a lot of it is used in blends rather than as a single malt. So the distillery itself is here, which is in a town/village called Alness, and it is quite literally over the road from the Dalmore distillery. It was founded in 1817 by a guy called Hugh Monroe, who built the distillery on the estate of his own castle, which was Teaninich Castle. Now they leased him and his brother-in-law, or his brother, I think it was his brother-in-law, leased the distillery to various parties while still maintaining ownership because it was on their land. So it had a number of different owners that were leasing it, then went, no, we don't want it, leased it to somebody else. Until 1904, where there was a guy called Robert Innes Cameron, who had stakes in Ben-Rinnes, Linkwood and Tamdhu already, so he was quite involved within Scotch whisky production. And he previous to 1904 ended up taking some stakes in it and was involved in, I think it was 1890, involved in 1901, he did put some money in towards the distillery along with the Munro estate, and expanded it and improved it. And in 1904 took over the distillery completely. In 1933, just after he died, it was sold to, they were called Scottish Malt Distillers, but they were actually an offshoot of the Distillers Company Limited, the DCL, who became Diageo, and this is now still owned by Diageo. It was mothballed. It shut down between 1939 and 1946 because of the war, due to the low stocks of barley. They expanded it in 1970, and it was quite a major expansion as well. It was sort of like extra buildings with extra stills were added. Now, in 2013, Diageo announced that next door to the Teaninich distillery, they were going to spend £50 million on building they were dubbing it a super distillery. And this was going to be next door. It was going to be called something completely different. It wasn't going to be, it wasn't an extension to the Teaninich distillery. It was a new distillery, and essentially it was almost like, Teaninich, goodbye, see you later. This was going to be like an Uber distillery they were going to build. Year later, Diageo turned around and said, actually, because of the market, because of the economy, production on it is halted. So far, no new distillery, but this was going to be an absolute monster they were going to build as well. Would have been very interesting for Dalmore over the road. So this continues. Now, this particular one is a 10-year-old from the Flora and Fauna range, which looks like this. And Teaninich on its own as a single malt is difficult to get hold of. A lot of it is used in Johnnie Walker Red Label, which is such a huge brand that, that's water dripping all over me. It's such a huge brand and it's such a big seller that if Teaninich is a key component of it, that's where it's going to go. And literally, if you can find it as a single malt, then you're lucky. They're doing you a favour by the fact that they're letting you have some of this single malt stock because they need it for the moneymaker, which is Johnnie Walker. So, Flora and Fauna range was a range of whiskies that Diageo released quite a few years ago, and I think they're getting increasingly hard to find now, where it was distilleries that were predominantly, it was like semi-official bottlings in terms of, this isn't a standard bottling, you're not going to find this year in, year out, but we're letting you have this as a single malt to see what it's like. And Linkwood was another one, Ben-Rinnes, Bladnoch, there were quite a few of them. But the line has gone now, so it really is a case of if you can find it. Now, this is on the Whisky Exchange, it was 45 quid. So it's still available, it's still around and about, but it is a case of finding it if you can. So thank you, Chris and Lindsay, for this. Always intrigued, never had Teaninich before. One of those kind of obscure ones that's just really difficult to get hold of. And at 43% as well? Yes, 43%. So quite an unusual nose, slightly farmyardy, slightly musty almost, and slightly oily as well. Now that oiliness continues. It's very oily indeed, in fact. And there's a pepperiness to it as well. And almost like nettles. There's a sharpness to it. It's an odd, slightly musty sharpness. It's not unpleasant, but it is quite unusual. And it's a different beast altogether to Dalmore, which is over the road and, you know, rich and sherried and good with cigars and everything like this. And this is like they've seen Dalmore over the road. It's like, well, we're not making that. It's going to make something different. It's quite light. There's almost a grapiness to it as well. Really unusual. Interesting. It's a really odd, distinctive sharpness to it. And it's like white grape skins and slightly lemon and lime as well. Yeah, lemon and lime. Not quite lemon meringue pie. If you kind of took the meringue off a lemon meringue pie, so it wasn't quite as sweet. So it was almost like a key lime tart or a lemon tart or something like that. It's really unusual. I'm not sure whether I like it. That's the thing. Because this oiliness is quite disconcerting. The citrusiness is nice, but it's covered with this kind of layer of almost a slightly maritime oiliness to it. And it's just a little unbalanced. It's interesting because it's so unusual. But the more flavour that I'm getting from it, the more I'm not sure if it's working for me. To start with, it surprised me. And I like that. I like whiskies that surprise me, and I like something that's interesting and different and everything like that. But the more time I'm spending with it, the more I'm thinking this doesn't quite sit right. But I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if I'm still enjoying it because it's unusual, or whether I'm just starting to find that actually it's a little unbalanced, a little too much. I think if I had a bottle of this, I would struggle to get through it. I think after a while, I'd be like, because it starts to get a little bit cloying as well. The oiliness is turning slightly cloying, and it feels like I'm starting to get, like when you have Chinese food and you get that MSG coating in your mouth after you've eaten Chinese takeaway, and your mouth feels as though it's got like a lining of this kind of MSG oiliness. I'm starting to get that. It's not that pleasant, but it's still interesting. I'll be honest, I think that's all you need of it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend getting a full-size bottle of it. I think it's worth getting one of these because it's interesting, it's unusual, it's quite distinctive. It'd be an interesting one to have like on a tasting with some friends or anything like that. But I'm not sure I'd want to buy a full-size bottle of it myself. Because I really do think I'd struggle to get through it. There's a slight nuttiness coming through now as well. But it's just this mouthfeel, it's this oily MSG mouthfeel that is just not too sure about that at all. Chris, thank you very much for that. I have a tiny bit left, so I'm going to save that for you because I'm not sure if you two have had that before. So I shall save the rest of that for you. Very interesting, unusual. Still not sure how I feel about it. Right, quick rinse out, get on with the third one, and then we can finish off for the night, and that's Highlands done. So I shall see you in the next one. Cheers.